The rain-slick pavement of downtown Seattle gleamed under the sodium glow of streetlights, a mirror reflecting the chaos of a city that never slowed down. Amid the blur of umbrellas and hurried footsteps, Daniel Harper stood frozen, his calloused hand outstretched, clutching a sleek, silver phone that didn't belong to him. Seconds earlier, it had slipped from the grasp of a woman in a tailored coat, her heels clicking furiously as she darted through the crowd. The phone had tumbled in slow motion, a glinting arc against the gray sky, and Daniel, with the reflexes of a man who'd once been a firefighter, lunged forward and caught it before it shattered on the concrete. The screen lit up as his thumb brushed the glass, and what he saw stopped his heart. A photo of a little girl with his daughter as eyes, a woman with his late wife's smile, staring back at him from a life he'd lost years ago, his breath caught in his throat, the world around him fading to a dull roar. How could this stranger's phone hold the faces of his family, the ones he buried in his heart after the accident that tore them away? If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unexpected ways life can weave people together, please hit the like button, drop a comment, share this story, and subscribe to Expose the Earth for more heart-touching tales that remind us of the beauty in humanity as connections. Daniel's life hadn't always been this solitary, this heavy. 5 years earlier, he'd been a man with a home filled with laughter, a wife named Clara who hummed while cooking breakfast, and a daughter, Lily, whose giggles could light up even the gloomiest Seattle morning. They were his world, his anchor in a life that demanded he run into burning buildings to save strangers. But one icy night, a drunk driver stole the world away, leaving Daniel with nothing but a scarred hand from trying to pull Clara and Lily from the wreckage. He'd quit the fire department after that, unable to face the trucks and sirens that reminded him of his failure. Now, at 38, he was a single dad to no one, working odd jobs as a handyman, living in a cramped apartment where the silence was louder than any fire alarm. Each day was a battle against the weight of grief, a struggle to keep moving when every step felt like betrayal to the family he'd lost. The phone in his hand, though, was a crack in that gray existence, a sudden, inexplicable link to a past he thought was gone forever. The woman who dropped the phone was already a blur in the crowd, her dark coat vanishing around a corner. Daniel's heart pounded as he stared at the screen again. The photo unchanged, a woman and a girl, maybe 6 years old, standing in a park. Their faces so eerily familiar that his knees nearly buckled. The woman's auburn hair fell in waves just like Clara's, and the girl's dimpled smile was a mirror of Lily's. But it couldn't be them, they were gone. Their lives snuffed out in a moment of twisted metal and broken glass. Daniel's fingers trembled as he swiped, hoping for answers. But the phone was locked, the photo fading to a password screen. He stood there, rain soaking his worn jacket, wrestling with what to do. Part of him wanted to chase after the woman, to demand how she had this picture. But another part feared the truth, feared it might unravel the fragile threads holding him together. He slipped the phone into his pocket, its weight both a burden and a lifeline, and made his way home, the city's hum a distant echo to the storm in his mind. Back in his apartment, Daniel sat at his small kitchen table, the phone resting in front of him like a forbidden artifact. The rain had followed him inside, dripping from his hair onto the scratched wood. He couldn't stop staring at the blank screen, imagining the photo beneath it. He tried to move on, to honor Clara and Lily by living, but every attempt felt hollow. Dating had been a disaster. Every woman felt like a shadow compared to Clara. Friends had drifted away, unable to handle his quiet grief. Work was just a means to pay rent, not a purpose. Yet this phone, this fleeting glimpse of faces that haunted his dreams, stirred something he hadn't felt in years. Hope, fragile and dangerous. He wondered if the woman who owned it knew his family, if she held a key to a mystery he hadn't dared to imagine. The thought of returning it without answers gnawed at him, but so did the guilt of holding on to something that wasn't his. He decided to wait, to see if she'd call her own number, to give himself time to unravel the impossible. The next morning, the phone buzzed, shattering the silence of his apartment. Daniel's heart leapt as he grabbed it, expecting her voice. But it was only a text notification. "Please, if you found my phone, call me. It's urgent. Eleanor." No number, just a name. He hesitated, his thumb hovering over the screen. What could he say? That he'd seen the photo? That it had torn open wounds he'd spent years stitching closed? Instead, he dialed the number listed in the text, his pulse racing. A woman answered, her voice crisp but frayed with worry. "Hello? Do you have my phone?" she asked. Daniel explained how he'd caught it, his words stumbling as he tried to sound normal. They arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown, a neutral place where he could return it and, he hoped, get answers. As he hung up, he felt a mix of dread and anticipation, like standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure whether the fall would break him or set him free. The coffee shop was a warm contrast to the cold drizzle outside, its air thick with the scent of espresso and fresh pastries. Daniel sat in a corner booth, the phone in his pocket like a ticking bomb. He scanned every face that entered, searching for the woman in the coat. When she walked in, he knew her immediately. Tall, poised, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes sharp but tired. "Eleanor Mason," she introduced herself, shaking his hand with a grip that spoke of boardrooms and deadlines. She was a CEO, he learned later, running a tech startup that had recently gone public. But in that moment, she was just a woman grateful to have her phone back. Daniel handed it over, his fingers lingering as he searched for the courage to ask about the photo. Before he could, she unlocked the screen, and there it was again, the image of the woman and girl, glowing under the coffee shop's soft lights. Eleanor's face softened as she looked at it, unaware of Daniel's tightening grip on his coffee mug. He couldn't hold back any longer. "Who are they?" he asked, his voice low, almost breaking. Eleanor looked up, startled, then glanced at the screen. Her expression shifted, a flicker of something, guilt, maybe, or sorrow. She explained that the woman was her sister, Anna, and the girl was her niece, Sophie. They lived in Portland, she said, but the words felt like half-truths to Daniel. He pressed further, his voice steady despite the ache in his chest, asking why they looked so much like his wife and daughter. Eleanor's eyes widened, and for a moment she seemed to see him. Really see him, not just as the stranger who decaught her phone, but as a man carrying a wound that matched her own. She hesitated, then began to tell a story that unraveled everything Daniel thought he knew about his past. Eleanor's sister, Anna, had been adopted as a baby, a fact their family rarely discussed. But years ago, while researching her roots, Anna had discovered she had a twin, Clara, Daniel's wife. The revelation had come too late. Clara had already passed away by the time Anna found her. Anna had been devastated, learning she'd had a sister she'd never known, a sister whose life had been cut short. She tracked down photos of Clara and Lily, piecing together a family she could never meet, and kept them on her phone as a way to feel close to them. Sophie, Anna's daughter, had been born around the same time as Lily, and their resemblance was uncanny, a twist of fate that made the photo even more haunting. Eleanor had borrowed the image for her own phone, a quiet tribute to the sister-in-law she'd never met, a reminder of the fragility of life. Daniel listened, his coffee growing cold, his mind reeling. Clara had never mentioned a twin, never hinted at a family beyond the one they built together. The adoption records, sealed and forgotten, had kept the sisters apart. And now Daniel was left grappling with the knowledge that a piece of Clara lived on in a woman he'd never known. Eleanor's voice was gentle as she explained how Anna had wanted to reach out to Daniel after learning about Clara's death, but grief and fear had kept her silent. She hadn't known how to approach a man who'd lost so much, hadn't wanted to reopen wounds. Daniel felt a surge of anger at Anna, at fate, at the years stolen from him, but it was quickly swallowed by something softer, something like relief. Clara's sister was alive. Her niece was alive. There was a thread of his family still out there, fragile but real. The conversation stretched into hours, the coffee shop emptying around them. Eleanor shared more about Anna, about her quiet life as a librarian, her love for Sophie, her struggle with the guilt of never meeting Clara. Daniel in turn told her about his life with Clara and Lily. The small moments that still kept him awake at night, the way Clara's laugh could fill a room, the way Lily's tiny hand fit perfectly in his. He hadn't spoken about them like this in years, and the words felt like both a wound and a healing. Eleanor listened, her eyes glistening, and for the first time, Daniel felt seen. Not as a broken man, but as someone who loved fiercely and lost unfairly. When they parted, Eleanor gave him Anna's number, urging him to reach out. She'd want to know you. She said she'd want to know Lily through you. The next few weeks were a blur of emotion for Daniel. He called Anna, his hands shaking as he dialed, and their first conversation was tentative, filled with pauses and tears. Anna's voice was so much like Clara's that it hurt, but it also soothed. Like a melody he thought he'd forgotten. They met in Portland, where Daniel saw Sophie for the first time, a living echo of Lily, with the same curious eyes and fearless laugh. Anna was quieter than Clara, her movements careful, but her warmth was the same, a reminder of the woman he'd loved. They talked for hours, sharing stories of Clara, piecing together the life she'd lived and the sister she'd never known, Sophie. Unaware of the weight of their meeting, played nearby. Her laughter a bridge between past and present. Daniel felt the grief he'd carried for years shift, not disappearing but softening, making room for something new. Meeting Anna and Sophie didn't erase Daniel's pain, but it gave him a purpose he hadn't had in years. He started visiting Portland regularly, bringing tools to fix Anna's creaky porch, teaching Sophie how to build a birdhouse, finding small ways to be useful again. He went back to firefighting, not as the reckless hero he'd once been, but as a man who understood the value of saving. What could be saved? The phone, that small, accidental catalyst, had cracked open his world, showing him that family could be found in unexpected places. That loss didn't have to be the end of the story. He kept in touch with Eleanor, too, her sharp wit and quiet compassion a steady presence in his life. She'd joke about how catching her phone was the best thing he'd ever done, and he'd laugh, the sound surprising him every time. As Daniel stood on Anna's porch one evening, watching Sophie chase fireflies in the yard, he felt a warmth he hadn't known since Clara and Lily were alive. The sky was clear, the stars sharp against the dusk, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was betraying his family by living. The pain was still there, a quiet ache that would never fully leave, but it was joined by something else, hope, fragile but growing, like a seed breaking through concrete. He thought of the phone, of that fleeting moment in the rain, and marveled at how a single act of kindness could ripple outward, changing everything. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of connection and the beauty of second chances, please hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Expose the Earth for more stories that move the soul. And before you go, drop a comment below. Tell us about a moment when kindness changed your life, or share what this story meant to you. Your words could inspire someone else, just like Daniel's story inspired us.